870 WOCA.
Ocala.
Thank you for tuning in this Monday morning, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for listening. The internet is an interesting thing. I have reconnected with some people from my past, and there's a lady I went to school with. She was a little girl when I went to school with her, and there's a lot of people online that I have reconnected with that I probably would have never reconnected with if it wasn't for the internet. But at the same time, it's kind of, I'm there too much, I think. I don't really have a social life, except for my social media.
Yeah.
Except for you. I hang out with you. I never, every once in a while we get to go out. I always feel like when we go out and do stuff, we're on, we're like the showbiz thing.
Yeah.
We got to be the personalities and all that. When I worked at a juvenile detention center way back a million years ago. And, when I had this paperwork I had to fill out for the kids. And one of the questions on the paperwork was, there was three choices. Is the child or is the juvenile a leader, a follower, or an isolate? Those were the three choices. And I always had to say, there's more of this or that or the other one, right? Mm-hmm. Leaders you could pick out like that. You could see the leaders like that. The followers versus the isolates was hard, sometimes. And I wondered, okay, if somebody was using this paper to judge me, especially when I was a kid, I bet I'd be the isolate. I wasn't really I didn't follow anybody, but nobody followed me either.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, well, that's kind of a good way to be, isn't it? I don't want to be responsible for somebody else, and I certainly don't want to be following anybody else. Susan Pinker has nailed this topic. She has written a book that will make you think, maybe even change your own ways. The book is called The Village Effect: How Face-to-Face Contact Can Make Us Healthier, Happier, and Smarter, which might explain a lot about me. Susan Pinker, good morning. So she's got a list of credentials. She's a developmental psychologist. I should do this, shouldn't I? Mm-hmm. She's a broadcaster who writes about social science. She's the recipient of the William James Book Award, the American Psychological Association, by them. She's featured in the New York Times. You can tell I'm reading.
Yeah.
I talk way better when I'm just talking than when I'm reading.
Yes, you do.
Susan Pinker. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Larry.
Where are you? You're Long Island, aren't you?
Pardon me?
Are you on Long Island?
No, I'm in Montreal, where it's snowing right now.
Montreal?
Oh, how fun.
That's a French accent?
No, I actually do speak French, but English is my first language.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the air with us today. Yeah, we got some cold. We got some cold weather. Yeah, I think if I was to, what would you be? A leader, a follower, or an isolate?
Oh gosh, I'd probably be an isolate, I guess.
What would you be, Susan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing. I think that there's a lot in categories.
Oh, there's some in between categories.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that isolates are actually in trouble, and that's one of the things that I discovered in the Village Effect is that being lonely and isolated disrupts your ability to think. It also creates like a loneliness fingerprint on every cell of your body, making you more likely to get sick and to die young. So I don't recommend it.
Gosh, I don't think I'm sick, though.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any fingerprints on my cells, actually.
Hey, Larry, I don't think you're a social isolate either.
No, I don't think I am. Now that you described it that way. So let me ask you this. Is society less social because of social media?
Well, we certainly have fewer people we can lean on. We know that from surveys. We're kind of hyper-connected, but we've never been lonelier than we are now. So in the early 80s, before any of us had smartphones or tablets or laptops, we had an average of 3 people we could depend on or confide in, and now we have fewer than 2. And some people, about 20%, say they have nobody to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that something? And yet they're online probably chatting with people all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can't pin this trend only on our online habits. I think that's only one piece of the puzzle. I think it's also we're a mobile society. People move around a lot, and so they move away from their families and their childhood friends. And they have the illusion, too, that if they connect online, that that's a true connection. But not all forms of social contact are created equal.
And you have to have that element of trust, because how many people do you see online that are just bearing their souls, or just, it's about them, or they're tattling on other people? You don't want to confide in somebody like that.
Well, what we know about online behavior, and in my chapter on online dating and romance and marriage, is that most people lie online. They pretend they're somebody that they're not.
Yeah.
So the women pretend they're thinner, and the men pretend that they're richer, and everybody's fine with that until they meet each other.
That's my mistake. I'm supposed to pretend I'm richer?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. But you know what? I think sometimes, let me just go back to something I said in the intro, because I want to use that. I said that in the intro, when Robin and I go out and we do social events, just so you know in advance, we're not married to each other. So when we do social events, it's usually for the sake of our job. So we're always on. We're like the radio personalities. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes that's the way it is online, on like Facebook. I think people are not authentic.
Well, yeah, your kind of social activity is part of your work. So if I can make a jump from that to talk about other workplaces, is that it's actually really important to have a social aspect to your work. And many of us now work alone or work remotely, or even those who work in offices, they kind of shoot an email or a text to their colleagues instead of getting up and walking down the hall. And what we know from research is that not only does this face-to-face social contact protect our health and our memories and our happiness, but it's also really good for productivity and the bottom line.
Do you help us to break out of any bad habits? Does the book help us in that way?
Yeah, it does, Larry, because even though it's a book about human stories that touch me, and then I use those human stories to segue into the science of explaining what exactly is going on. But I also, at the end of the book, I give some tips about how you can incorporate face-to-face contact into your life right now. In other words, I use the idea of a village because I go to Sardinia and investigate a real village where people live. There are 10 times as many centenarians there as there are in North America. People live very long lives, and the men live almost as long as women. And I use that metaphor of the village to express how important it is to have a group of people that we interact as we move through our day.
You talk about biological functions and how the different parts of the body are benefited by people being social.
Well, when you interact face-to-face, there's a whole cascade of neurochemical events that happens. There's oxytocin and vasopressin that are released. These are hormones that damp down stress, that make you feel good in the here and now, and that also increase your resilience. So they kind of affect how your cells react to stresses into the future and to infections. So, for example, we know that social contact switches on and off the genes that regulate tumor growth.
Really?
Yes, and it doesn't affect whether you get cancer in the first place, but once you have cancer, for example, your social contact can have an impact on whether there's a recurrence or whether your cancer will grow. So, for example, there was a study of 3,000 women with breast cancer, and they found that those with large face-to-face networks of friends that they saw face-to-face were 4 times as likely to survive.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Wow.
So people with active social lives recover faster after an illness, and there's nothing that you can do that's more powerful of the things you can control. You can't control your genes, but you can control your environment, and of the things that you can control, your social contact is the most powerful predictor of how long you will live.
Really? I want to tell you something about my mom. My mom passed away about 2 years ago. But before she passed away, my dad passed away 4 years earlier than her, okay? When he passed away, she was not the depressed widow. She was still as vibrant and as great attitude as she had been all of her life when I knew, I knew her since I was born, of course. What I want to tell you about, I just gave you that as a background so that I could tell you this. When at her church, her pastor invited her to join this group for grieving widows and widowers. Mm-hmm. And she said to the pastor, I don't need that. I don't need to go to that kind of group. I'm fine. And the pastor said, no, they need you. They need you because you will bring some socialized. You'll bring it up. You'll bring up the attitude.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying right now kind of reinforces what this pastor must have instinctively known.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about what you say about your mother is she is demonstrating what I call the female effect. So even though she suffered a tremendous loss, she probably had friends and family and a whole group of people who were supporting her other than her late husband. And this is women's ability to prioritize and groom these relationships over their lifetimes. This is what I'm calling the female effect. This bolsters their resilience and their memories and their happiness. And this is why, on average, women live an average of 7.5 years longer than men.
Oh, gosh. Well, I have so many more things to ask you now that you told me that. We have to take a little break. The book is The book is called The Village Effect. It's written by Susan Pinker up in the freezing cold Montreal.
Gee, yes, no. That's so cool.
I'm just trying to rub it in. We're going to get some cold temperatures in a couple of days. All right, we'll take a little break and we'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Increasing cloudiness, a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon today, high 81 to 84. Cloudy tonight, showers and a thunderstorm mainly early, low 55 to 65. Clouds give way to sun, breezy and cooler tomorrow, high 57 to 69. Partly cloudy, cooler tomorrow night, freezing temperatures in the normally colder spots, low 37 to 46. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Steve Williams.
Get it for less at the DIY Home Center outlet. Get top quality real wood cabinets the same or less than the big box stores are selling the cheap stuff. And that's not all. Drywall screws big box stores are $6.47 a pound. At DIY, only $4.99. Plus, DIY has the largest selection of mobile home parts and accessories anywhere. From carpet to doors, get the DIY supplies you need for less. The DIY Home Center outlet. We are your building material closeout store. 2191 Northwest 10th Street, just 2 miles east of I-75.
Hi, my name is Dr. Erica Olstein with A Better You Healthcare Acupuncture and Eastern Medicine. As primary care physicians, we use acupuncture to treat back pain, arthritis, migraines, allergies, high blood pressure, thyroid disorders, hormone imbalances, stress, and more using all natural medical therapies. We treat the source of your problems, not just your symptoms. For more information, go to abetteryouhealthcare.com or call today to set up your appointment, 352-615-5566.
Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. right here on The Source, WOCA. Don't miss Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement with your hosts, Francois Cousinet and Julianne Cousinet. They'll be giving you information about your retirement funds and answering your questions with live call-in. So don't miss it, Saturdays from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement right here on The Source, WOCA 96.3 FM and 1370 a.m.
Dad's service to our country is something we're all proud of. He made a difference and set a great example. Now it's our turn to honor the sacrifices he made for our family and his country. As Veterans Funeral Specialist, Hires Baxley Funeral Services helped us celebrate Dad's life, and they can help you too. Hires Baxley is here for you during your time of need or when planning for the future. For more information, call 352-484-0891 or visit hires-baxley.com/choice.
Nothing comes close to honey baked. For starters, every honey baked ham is fully cooked and ready to serve, and underneath that sweet, crunchy glaze is the leanest, most flavorful, moist, and tender ham you'll find anywhere. Add a luscious turkey breast, pot roast, or baby back ribs with our delicious casserole dishes and desserts, and voila, dinner is served. Call us now to place your order at 861-0011. That's 861-0011. Place your order today and grab one of Honey Baked Ham's scrumptious sandwiches to go or dine in.
All right, 11 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. 77 degrees right now here at The Source, WOCA. Susan Pinker is up in Montreal, where I'm guessing it's cooler than that.
Yeah.
And The Village Effect is the title of her book, How Face-to-Face Contact Can Make Us Healthier, Happier, and Smarter. And this is such an in-depth look at ourselves that I think you'll probably see yourself in some of the descriptions that she has in the book. So just going back to what we ended at, Susan, before the break, when you were talking about women, I think I've noticed this, that women seem to be better at being social than men in general. Maybe not always, and some guys are really good at it, but I think women generally.
that is really something I delve into in the book, because we find that women tend to put a lot of emphasis on their relationships, and this is protective for them, but it also protects their husbands. So that single or divorced men are at incredible risk of dying prematurely, 250% more likely to die prematurely than married men are at any age. And part of the reason for this is that they benefit from their wives' social networks. Their wives are picking up the phone and saying, come for dinner, or let's go to a movie, or let's play cards, or let's meet at Starbucks, etc. They're the ones sending the Christmas cards. They're kind of grooming that kind of buffer zone of social relationships around the marriage, and that if the wife dies, that whole network dies with her, to the detriment of their husband.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. That means I'm going any day now. I'm just going.
You send out Christmas cards.
I don't send out Christmas cards.
You do.
I do. I send out Christmas cards.
But Larry, the question is, do you invite people for dinner and make them dinner at your house?
No.
What about here's something that's really essential for creating the village effect.
I'm gonna die soon.
Is that you have to sort of be integrated into your community or your neighborhood. You have to participate. Like here, what a lot of men do is they have weekly hockey games, and then they go out for a beer afterwards. What do people do in the Ocala, Orlando area when they want to have regular social contact?
Well, they do. It's just that
you participate every day.
My connectivity, yeah. I'm connected to the community through this microphone.
Yeah.
Does that count?
It does. Because when you go out and walk around, people will recognize you, and they recognize your voice, and you are an integral part of the community. And essentially, we know that communicating by voice is extremely important. Do I have time to mention a little study?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was an incredible study of kids where they tested the effect of texting versus calling versus being there in person on the kids' stress levels. And what they did is they took a bunch of girls from 7 to 12 years old, and they stressed them out by giving them math and word problems that they had to solve in front of an audience. Now, they tested what their cortisol and their saliva. That means like how high their stress levels were before and after. But here's the key. After they had this test, they divided them into 4 equal groups. One group got a visit from mom. One group got a phone call from mom. One group got a text from mom. And one group got nothing at all. That was the control group. And they wanted to see what was the effect of the different types of contact, because we all assume, really, that it's all about the message, not the type of message, not the medium. You don't have to be there. You just have to send a text. But what they discovered was that the group that had visits from mom and calls from mom had their cortisol or stress levels go way down. They were comforted by their mom's presence or speaking to their mom. The ones who got a text from mom were not distinguishable from the ones who had nothing at all, no contact.
Really? Were the dads included in this? I mean,
there were no dads included in this. This is definitely a female effect experiment.
Okay.
When you were asking those questions before of us, whether we feel each of us is a leader, a follower, or an introvert, that is really, really isolate. I'm sorry. That is really hard to answer, because sometimes when people are leaders, you see what's going on around you. You don't think of yourself as a leader, but you know that people depend on you. But if you admit to being a leader, then other people might look at you of having a huge ego and being very conceited.
Are you waiting for me to?
Yes. Yes.
Because I don't actually write about leaders and followers as much as writing about a sense of belonging and who's included and who's excluded.
Yeah.
And essentially, being excluded is very dangerous for us, as you can imagine. And what people don't know, and what I found fascinating, is that it disrupts your ability to think and solve problems. So if you're lonely or isolated or feel excluded from a group, it does a little trick to your brain. And because we have essentially evolved as a species to hang around in groups, and that's where we feel most comfortable. It's a biological need, like hunger or thirst or sleep or sex. We need to feel that we belong, and we get that feeling of belonging by seeing other people in person.
So,
Facebook does not do it for us.
So if the conclusion is that we need to be more sociable in person, and the cure for whatever is ailing us is to do that, then the only mountain to have to climb over is how to do that. And I'm wondering about that mountain. If I were to move to a new town, for example, where I knew nobody, I might say, okay, I don't want to be the lonely man in the room the rest of my life. I'm going to go out and find a group to join, and that group could be a church. It could be somebody with the same interests. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, if I'm going to go to a strip club, I'm not going to find too many pals.
No, and I think that I would change that wording from mountain to tiny little hill. It's not that hard to create the village effect. First thing, if you're moving to a new place, look for a neighborhood where people talk to each other, where they know and talk to their neighbors. Does it have sidewalks? Does it have parks? Does it have places to hang out? Don't just look for garages and closets. Look for the places where people connect.
I know, but here's the guy difference. A guy in a park is creepy. It's hard to be in a park. Like a woman can be in a park and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And every guy will say, "Great, I'm so glad you said something to me." Mm-hmm. But a guy in the park who walks up to a woman and says, "Hey, how you doing?" Get away from me.
Yeah. In the book I talk about my trip to Sardinia, where people live very long lives, well into their 90s and 100s, and the difference between them and us is that the men hang out together in cafes, in bars, and in parks. So they're not creepy because there's 3 or 4 of them and they're all talking to each other. They're not looking to other people. They're looking within themselves and their own groups and to having a good time together.
That is different, yeah. Susan, we take calls from listeners in order to be social. And we have some people calling you wanting to say hi or ask a question. So let's do a few of them. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. You're on the air with Susan Pinker.
Susan, I can't wait to look at your book, get your book, and your comments just jarred so many thoughts, like with animals, with the pack that they're in, and then the use of therapy animals, and it's just such a great topic. And then people who have similar interests, or even if you're just doing what you love with an animal. Let's say you're not a social person, but you have a pet, and how helpful that is, and then in nursing homes and all that. I love the topic. Thank you. Can't wait to get your book.
All right.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
I'd like to just make a little comment about your caller who talked about animals. And you do know that pets are a great way to meet people and a great way to meet your neighbors. People who walk dogs, they stop and their dogs get to know each other and their owners get to know each other.
I know.
Yeah.
I gotta get a dog who likes to walk. No, I know a guy. I actually know a guy in South Florida who is married now because he had a dog.
Yeah.
And he met his wife because she was walking dogs for a living. And that's what she did. She had, people paid her to walk dogs. And he asked her out 4 times, and she said no. And on the 5th time, the conversation came up about the dog. And he said, yeah, I found this. It was a very, very bad dog. I had to pay $5,000 to the vet to have it fixed. And she said, my goodness, you must love dogs. Well, long story short, they're married. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, Gary, you just admitted that you spent $5,000 on a stray.
Yeah.
That's what got you the woman. Not
your passion for
Not your
animals.
compassion for them. I'm teasing. They're a sweet couple. Susan, I love this topic. I agree with the